Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day today to join us here on our presentation. So today I have the pleasure of presenting to you a slide deck that what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking a look at manufactured homes. Now, we're looking at kind of the overarching high-level overview of what is a manufactured home, what type of different financing options there are for manufactured homes, and of course that there are some stigmas out there on how people feel about offering financing options for these types of homes and showing you that it's really very simple to go ahead and help a borrower out that's looking to either purchase a brand new manufactured home or go out there and refinance a home that they currently own. It's really all about knowing kind of the specifics, knowing what's allowed, what's not allowed, kind of what is considered to be a manufactured home that is financeable. Because there are homes out there, people, when you say that name, a lot of times they think of like a mobile home park. They think of something a little bit more kind of uh, outside of the box, something a little bit more outside than what you would be for a traditional single family home. And we're here today to really show you that it's not. It's not that dissimilar to what you're all used to on just a regular single family home, with just some specific things that you need to keep an eye out for to ensure that you have the proper guidelines that you're following for your different agencies, that you have a property that can go through smoothly without having any of those big hiccups from there. Big thing I do want to call out here. I actually threw it right there in our chat here, our Zoom chat. That is the link for our videos and presentations page on our MLBwholesale.com website. That way, the presentation slides that I'm using today, that's exactly where you can go ahead and download the slides, use them for future reference if you ever want to go back to them. And of course, we record our webinars and we post those webinars on our YouTube channel. So if you go to MLB Wholesale on YouTube, you'll find the recording of videos of today's webinar and lots of others that we host on a weekly basis. So that way you're up to speed on all the exciting programs we have and use it as great resource tools to go back to if you want a refresher and kind of take your pace through there. So let's jump right into things and talk about manufactured homes. So first thing is that a manufactured home isn't the same thing as a modular or a mobile home. A mobile home is just as the name entails, something that can be moved from place to place fairly easy, whereas a modular home is something completely different as well. A manufactured home is a factory built home that is designed to be lived in for their full year. So it's for year round living and has been built to specific HUD standards that were developed in 1976. The thing about these types of homes is, like I mentioned, they're a great opportunity because about 10% of all homes in the entire United States are manufactured homes. So you have about 10% of the whole country out there that's ready and able to use the types of programs that I'm going to show you today. And you can have those kind of pieces and the information in the back of your mind, whether you've worked with manufactured homes prior to today's call or it's something that you're looking to jump into, you'll have some additional tools in your tool belt to feel comfortable with these properties. So, like I mentioned, what is a manufactured home? As I said before, it's been built in a factory designed to be lived in all year round. It was built to the HUD manufactured home construction and safety standards that were developed in 1976. It has been built on a permanent steel chassis. The wheels have been completely 100% removed and it has been permanently affixed to the foundation. That's the biggest thing is that it's affixed to the foundation with no possibility of it ever moving. That's what makes it a manufactured home on top of it being built to those HUD standards. And like I mentioned, about 10% of the entire housing stock in the United States is manufactured homes. So one of those things about it that makes it kind of a big piece that can shift something from uh, a deal that we can work on and a deal we can't work on is whether this is real property or personal property. So that's where your eligibility really begins and making sure that's possible. Manufactured homes are real property. They are fee simple, where the home and the property that it is located on are owned by the borrower 100% outright. So it cannot be any type of leased land or in a mobile home park or any of those types of things. Manufactured home is a home that is real property, whereas a mobile home is considered personal property. Same thing like if you owned a car. That would be the same type of process. That's a completely different product that we don't currently have. So here's some other points to keep in mind. So I've mentioned that 1976 date already, but there's a very specific date to it. The home has to be built on or after June 15th of 1976. So that this year being 50 years since those HUD standards went into place. So most homes are going to be younger than that, especially now since we're hitting 50 years since those standards. But for a manufactured home, as long as it's built after 1976, then you are good to go. As I mentioned, must be classified and taxed as real property in a fee simple, so owned by the borrower, permanently affixed to the foundation on the original chassis from the factory. It must meet all your flood elevation requirements if it is in a flood zone, and it has to have your HUD certification labels. I'm going to show you an example of that today as well, so you have an idea of that. Manufactured homes can be in different types of sizes. You might have heard these terms before: your single wides, double wides, triple wide, or multi-section. Each individual section was built in a factory, and then when it's placed on the property, they combine them all together into one home type. Because each section is built separately in that factory and then combined, each section has its own label. So we're going to talk about a little bit more as well, but keep that in mind too, is that each section has its own label there. So if these are your check marks, that's why I kind of added these on the slides here. These are the things that when you're having a conversation with your borrower, check these boxes off. If one of these are missing, then you might run into a situation where the products we currently have here at MLB might not work for your borrower. So if you have one of these missing, you could send a scenario into our scenario desk, for example. Just run it past us, see if that's a situation. Ask your account executive, let them know, okay, here's a situation I have. I have all these things, but I'm missing the flood elevation requirements, or I'm missing the fee simple piece. Okay, ask your account executive, ask our scenario desk even, and they can run past you and say, okay, maybe we can work with this. Maybe there's a way that we can get additional paperwork, maybe those different things. But that'd be a case by case. But traditionally, you want to have all of these items checked off in order to make sure you know that you can smoothly move from A to Z without any type of bumps in the road or hiccups. So that's the biggest thing. Catching those upfront items is going to save you significant amount of time and, of course, a significant amount of stress for everybody that's part of the process. Ineligible manufactured homes, things that are not acceptable. That includes anything that's in a park or a leasehold, anything that is in a condominium project, with the exception, there is one exception, you see it there, is if the entire community is FHA HRAP approved. So it's not single unit, the entire community has to be HRAP approved in order to do manufactured homes under FHA. But otherwise, condominium projects are not eligible for manufactured under conventional USDA, VA, and so forth. Any type of home that has been moved or traded since the original home was put on the property. So, for example, home is built, placed on site A. If at some point in the life of that home, they moved it from site A and put it on site B. If that happened, it automatically disqualifies the home from all programs except for VA. VA allows for the home to have been moved one time. So as long as the home has been moved one time, then you are good to go with VA. Units that are not permanently affixed, like I said, it has to be on a permanent foundation, and the home must always be classified as, if as real property, I should say, should always be qualified as real property, not as personal property. Personal property, once again, is the same as like a car in that case. So that is not eligible for these. Biggest thing, once again, always make sure you confirm and get those details up front first. Now, certain agencies have different things based on whether the home is considered new or existing. A new home does not just mean a home that came out of the factory yesterday. It also means a home that is less than a year old. So anything that's less than 12 months automatically goes under the category of new. Um, it may still need some site work or some connection to utilities. It's very possible in those cases. It's 100% completed, but it's less than 1 year old. It's still considered new. So that's a big thing to keep in mind there. Now, anything that's older than a year, anything that's over those 12 months, that's fully complete and functional, has all your utilities connected and operational, it is considered existing. So anything existing would get that label with it being older than 12 months and a day. So you hit 12 months and 1 day, automatically it flips to that existing title there. So if you ever hear those terms thrown out on different conditions, for example, from underwriting or other types of situations, that's how you kind of tell how old which label it's going to get, either new or existing. Before I get into the others, I want to call out some specific home types that are built. Fannie Mae has its own home called the MH Advantage. Some builders, not all builders, but some builders across the country have the ability to work with Fannie Mae directly to build these types of homes and factories. If the home has been built to MH Advantage statuses, it allows for additional financing opportunities for the borrowers that buy these types of homes. So they can get higher LTVs up to 97%. They can get a 0.50 LLPA waived if they buy this type of property with Fannie Mae. They get lower MI. And they can also combine this with a Home Ready, for example, or any other type of Fannie Mae products if they're buying a home that was built specifically to the MH Advantage status. This sticker, you actually see the example here on my slide. That's the sticker that will actually be on the home itself to show you that that type of financing is available. If this sticker is missing, that means that we cannot use the MH Advantage with Fannie Mae, for example. But this is something that they'll be able to have that ready to go. So this, I want to just call that out. Now that's the Fannie Mae one. Freddie Mac actually has their own version as well called the Choice Home. Same principle. They get additional benefits by purchasing a home that was built to the Freddie Mac Choice Home standards in this case. And same thing, they put a sticker on the home stating that the builder built it to Freddie Mac specifications, and it allows them to get that special financing through Freddie Mac. So those are the two ones I'm going to call out for conventional specifically before we dive into all the other things that apply to all manufactured homes across the board. All right. So the next things I'm going to talk about here for a few slides are things that apply to all manufactured homes across the board. So whether you're going conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, any of those, these are the things that our team, our underwriters are always going to condition for, we're always going to be looking for, and we want to make sure that we have those ready to go. So the first one is your HUD certification label. So this is one of the things stating that it's been built after 1976. And this is the label that will be shown on each section of the home. So once again, if it is a single wide, there'll only be one label. If it's a double wide, there'll be two labels, and so forth, as the sections go. What's going to happen is the appraiser, when they go out to do their appraisal report, they will look for these HUD labels. If the label is missing, or there's some examples on the slide here, if the labels, sometimes people paint them over. They don't realize that there's something that's needed for financing. So people paint them over, they remove them, whatever, just wear and tear from weather over the years. They might not be legible. Then in that case, you would need to order an IBTS verification letter in order to verify the home has been built to HUD standards. We'll talk about that. I'll show you an example of that. But otherwise, if you have all your HUD labels, you're good to go. So you check that piece off, you're good to go. Like I said, the appraiser will confirm that in their report. Now, those are on the outside of the home. There's also something required that's on the inside. and that is the HUD data plate or compliance certificate. These are typically found inside cabinets, electrical panels, closets. It all depends on the builder. They put them just in different spots when they build their homes, but it's usually on an inside of some type of door uh, in those homes. Is breaking down the manufacturer, the model, what year the home was built, the serial numbers. Those serial numbers will match also with the label numbers that are on the outside labels I just showed you. So we want to make sure that the labels on the outside of the home match the same numbers that are on this data plate on the inside of the home. And just verifying wind, roof load, thermal zones, all that stuff, depending on where this home is located in the country. So breaking all that information down, having all of that so you have all those details in there. This is another thing, like I mentioned, the appraiser will verify that this is there. If this is missing, we still need that IBTS letter. So even if you have the labels on the outside, if this is missing, we still need that letter. If both are missing, then we definitely need the letter, but we always need the letter if at least one of these is missing. If both of them are there, good to go. You don't need to worry about that letter. Now, speaking to that, documentation requirements across your agencies. Fannie Mae, FHA, VA, Freddie Mac, all of them, USDA, they all require both the HUD label and data plate, like I mentioned. Based on the different agencies, there may be other things needed. That IBTS is allowed to be used as verification if any of the originals are missing, those labels or data plate. The appraisal is always going to be a 1004C, is the exact name of the appraisal for all manufactured homes. Um, Big thing here for FHA and USDA, they always require an engineer certification. The other name people call it is a foundation cert. But engineer slash foundation certification is always going to be asked for and conditioned for on FHA and USDA. Fannie, Freddie, and VA will only need those engineer certs if there's something that seems to be off about the foundation. So if the appraiser makes comments on their report stating that it seems like the home has had some type of work done to the foundation, if it doesn't seem structurally sound to them, but they're not an expert in foundation certs, then there may be a condition added there. Like I mentioned, VA allows for a home to have been moved one time. If you run into that situation, that engineer cert's going to be needed because the home has been moved on VA. But like I said, you're always going to have that HUD label and data plate required, and that IBTS can be used across all agencies if needed for that additional verification. These are just some examples to show you stuff on the appraisal. Like I mentioned, make sure you have you know exactly which appraisal type to order. It's not a regular 1004. It needs to be a 1004C in order to ensure that it's a true manufactured home appraisal report. I've seen people time and time again do that where they order the wrong appraisal. The appraiser goes out. Most appraisers are pretty good at catching that before they complete the report and they say, hey, this needs to be updated to a C. But some appraisers just do it and then it gets to underwriting and we can't move forward. We run into a roadblock there where you have to go back and have a whole new appraisal done because it's the wrong appraisal type. So 1004C is the one we need for your manufactured homes. VA is the only difference there because VA has their own appraisal system internally. They don't have like the different numbering like how Fannie, Freddie, and FHA and USDA have. They just have kind of their own thing. But either way, the appraiser on all agencies is going to confirm the HUD labels are there, data plate, the home's on a permanent foundation, it's a single unit dwelling. That just applies to the fact that it's a home that is full year-round living. It's been connected to all the proper utilities, and it has the correct count for your sections. So single, double, triple wide, all that type of stuff. Um, and then if for some reason those HUD labels or the data plate are missing, the appraiser will state there. So in this case, it says right here, like, is the HUD certification label attached to the exterior of each section of the dwelling? The answer was no on the second one. So it was on yes on the first question, just meaning do we have a HUD label or a head data plate. We do have it, so that one's okay. But then we got to the second one, and the second one says no. Automatically, that means we need that IBTS letter. We need that letter to verify that the proper serial codes, the proper um, uh, numbers of what year the home was built, all that type of stuff, because we're missing those labels there on the outside according to the appraiser. So big thing, keep in mind as soon as you see that no, okay, now we got to go over to the IBTS side. Some things to keep in mind here. Permanent foundations. Uh, the home must be built to HUD permanent foundation guidelines. Like I said, FHA loans always require an engineer certification. But you also need an engineer cert if there's any type of structural modifications that have been present, if there have been additions to the home since it was originally built. And like I said, on VA only, if the home has been moved one time, you would need an engineer certification. That information's verified by the appraiser. And of course, it could be the main person who's going to do that is a structural engineer. And you can order those engineer certifications through many different places online. Now, I have an example here. There's a company called Heyman Engineering. That's a company that I know I personally have dealt with engineer certs for it's been maybe over 10 years now that I've been working with them on different loans, and I've suggested them to people because they're across the whole country. But if you have a structural engineer that you've worked with in the past, or you have somebody that you recommend internally, you can feel free to use them as well from there. But I use them as an example here because they have a great example of what it looks like from that. And they will go ahead and do that report if we find those things. So here's an example of things that would cause our underwriter to say, hey, we need an engineer cert. Of course, FHA. But also if there's an attached garage or carport, if there's any decks, porches, overhangs, or if the appraiser states that there's been structural additions made to the home since it was originally built. The engineer has to certify that the additions do not compromise the structural integrity of the home, and the home still remains compliant through HUD. And they'll be able to confirm those details. Um, for comparable sales on your appraisal, we do need to have at least two manufactured home comps at all times for a manufactured home appraisal. The third comp can be site built if the home is like let's say in an area that manufactured homes are not as common. It's possible, but if you run into that situation, if you're more rural area, um, homes are more spread out. Maybe you need the third one to be a site built. That's acceptable, but at least the first two have to be manufactured home comps in order to go there. And then distance wise, how far away those comps can be all depends on where the home is located. Um, it can go up to 5 miles when it comes to a rural property. If it goes over 5 miles, that needs to be reviewed by our senior management here at MLB to ensure that's something that we will accept if the comp is over 5 miles. I don't know how many of you have worked in situations in certain states that some people like to put multiple manufactured homes on one piece of property. I know that, like in California, people have ADUs a lot. That's very common. There are certain parts of the country where people do that. Now, if there is more than one manufactured home on the property, the way that works is that the home that the borrower is going to be living in can be the only property, the only structure, I should say, that has the ability for someone to actually live in it all year round. So that additional structure cannot have any type of utilities. It cannot have a separate address. It has to be classified as an accessory unit. So, for example, like a shed, a garage, or just a storage unit, something that's just a separate structure on that property. So, and also on the appraisal, it cannot give any type of value to that additional structure. No comp support from there. So it still must meet all your eligibility, as we mentioned before, but it must be smaller than the home that they're living in. It cannot have any type of utilities, and it can't have the ability for anyone to actually live in the structure in order for that to be acceptable. Here's that IBTS I brought up so many times. Give you an example of what it looks like. That is the two different options they give is either the label verification letter or a duplicate version of the data plate slash performance certificate. So this is once again used if the HUD tags are missing or unlegible, or if the data plate is missing on the inside. It's as simple as just IBTS's website. It's just look up IBTS. It's as simple as that. And their website will come up, and you'll be able to order a letter through there if necessary, if that's something you have to do in your situation. Here's that engineer certification I mentioned earlier. And the cost of the engineer cert must always be disclosed properly to your borrower. Like I mentioned, it's always there as a requirement on FHA and USDA. So in those cases, you'll always see it on your disclosures for those two agencies. But if it comes up as something that we need later down the road, then the LE can be redisclosed to your borrower as a change of circumstance to add that fee into your disclosures if it's necessary to add it in later on. And here's kind of the breakdown. Like I mentioned, these slides I'm using right now are available on that link I put into our chat. So you can always use this as a great reference tool to go back to. It kind of breaks that down exactly on when that engineer cert is required and when you would kind of jump in there and say, okay, this is something we need to do for that. I do want to call out that for FHA, like I mentioned, it's always required. But if you're doing a FHA to FHA refi, HUD actually allows you to use the original engineer cert if you still have that. Same thing if you're purchasing the home from FHA directly, so that's the REO sale. If you're purchasing the home from HUD, if they're the seller, you don't need an engineer cert because you're purchasing it directly from them. VA to VA also doesn't require an engineer cert. And if we have the original engineer cert and it's not old, we can accept that as well. But that's something that the underwriter will be able to check and verify those details. I do want to call out flood certifications. These are for homes that are in a flood zone. So what happens with this is that if the home is located in a flood zone, you always need an elevation certificate. And that's an example you can actually see right here on the slide here. Um, or if for some reason FEMA goes out and redraws their map and removes the property from the map. That one's the extreme rare situation. I haven't heard of that happening, but it's an example of something that could happen. So if they do redraw their map and remove the home from the flood zone area, then you wouldn't need that flood certification. Typically, you would just need to order that elevation certificate to confirm that the structure is above the base flood elevation. So you'll see that right here is the base flood elevation is B9. So right here down the bottom, section B, B9, you'll see that number, and then you'll see the person filling out the certificate will go ahead and fill that out. Excuse me. They'll go ahead and fill that out of where the structures land, and if as long as the structure is above the number that's there in B9, that includes the foundation, that includes any type of machinery like an AC unit, for example. As long as it's above that number, you're good to go. Flood insurance must always be included in your DTI, and it's going to be escrowed. All right. And the last thing I want to talk about before we wrap things up here is we're going to talk about our title requirements. So these are title requirements on all manufactured homes, just to kind of keep in mind here. Is that manufactured homes need an ALTA 7. So that's a manufactured home endorsement. This is something just to bring up to your settlement agents, your title companies that you work with. Make sure they have that to confirm that the home is part of the land. If you do business in the state of Texas, it does need to be a T31 endorsement. So that's specific in that state. The title will confirm all those details, make sure if anything's missing, if anything needs to be converted. You can see their title handles real property conversion. There are times where a home meets all the requirements of a manufactured home. So it's on a permanent foundation, it has no wheels, it has everything, it's built to the proper HUD standards, everything. But for one reason or the other, the home is not fee simple at the moment. It's not considered real property. That doesn't mean a complete deal breaker. There, if your title company or settlement agent is willing to do so, they have the ability of doing that conversion to convert that property to real property when we're closing the loan. So in the process of closing on that loan, your settlement agent slash title company can do that conversion to real property to make sure by the time we sign those final docs, the home is now considered a full HUD approved manufactured home. So like I said, that's kind of another thing to think, okay, this is not going to be a complete deal breaker. Let's see if all the parties that are involved in this transaction have the ability to really kind of work together and have everything we need. And then you have the affixation affidavit. So that's just confirming that the home's on a permanent foundation, that it's considered a real property, and that the right property tax is being applied to the property in question. So in those cases, I have a few frequently asked questions in here. In the meantime, if anyone here has any questions before I get to the final slide, before I go through this, feel free to throw those into the chat box here. Also, when I'm done with this, if you want to unmute yourself, I'm happy to answer questions as well. But biggest things here is that manufactured homes in general, they aren't a more difficult type of loan. They're just more detailed. That's a different way of looking at it, is that they're more detailed in the sense as long as you have those little details we've gone through, and I know we've thrown a lot of information at you today, but as long as you have those little details kind of put together and you have those check marks, that is something that can really put you ahead in certain markets. If you are living in an area that has a lot of these types of homes, you can have lots of great opportunities to help your borrowers. So biggest factors here that I always like to let people know is that the people who are really successful with these are those who confirm those details as early as possible. Collect the HUD documentation up front. Order the correct appraisal, that 1004C. Make sure that we know, is it in a flood zone? Is it not in a flood zone? Um, Checking all those details about the foundation, the title, all that stuff before the underwriting team reviews and even touches. Um, that's how a big way that you can protect your pipeline, your borrower, and of course, the partnerships that you're building out there. At the end of the day, the biggest thing here is that we want to help you and help you be smarter, faster, and as our kind of motto goes, and as our mission here is always making lives better. So if you have an underwriting scenario that you want to run past us about a manufactured home or really anything in general, feel free to run that past us as early as into the process as possible. You just had your first conversation with your borrower, or maybe you just are thinking about something and you want to run it past us. Um, you can reach out to your assigned account executive. They're the first person to reach out to. But you can also reach out to scenarios at mlbmortgage.com, and they'll be able to take a look and respond to you back as soon as possible with additional insight, feedback on those types of situation. So in those cases, let me bring up that last page here. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to throw them in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself. I saw one question come in here, but I want to thank you all for your time. So question came in is, does MLB do manufactured home land packages, one-time close? So the answer is no. So currently MLB does not work in that space, in the one-time close space right now. But great question. I used to personally work in that space, but right now MLB does not currently. All right. Any other questions? Oh, yes, I will throw that in the chat. So everybody has it. So I threw the scenario desk email in our chat here. So if you guys ever want to save that, but like I mentioned too, reach out to your assigned account executive. They should always be the first person you reach out to make sure you're going in the right direction. But they'll be able to help you as well. But we have our scenario desk too, from an underwriting standpoint. We do business in every state with the exception of Massachusetts, Hawaii, and Alaska. But we're available in every other state. And Massachusetts is actually coming soon. We're going to have Massachusetts in probably another 2, 3 months. Awesome. All right. I want to thank you all so much for taking some time out of your day today to join us here on the call. I truly appreciate it. Like I mentioned, reach out to your AE if you have any questions. On these programs and anything else that we offer here at MLB Wholesale. And our team will help you out. And once again, as our mission goes, it's you who help us every single day to help make lives better. Thank you all for your time. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and hopefully we'll all see you soon.